Planning Board meeting of July 26, 2023. John, would you mind?
Yeah, sure. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Good to be here. Good evening, everybody. First on the agenda is 728 Route 6, amended site plan. Hi, Willie. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. How are you doing tonight?
Great. Mike, I believe you had some comments?
Yeah, same comments basically as last time. Still asking for the lot depth and width lines on the plat. They weren't put on there.
Okay.
Provide aisle width at the location of the 125 square foot addition. It's a one-way aisle, just show me that it complies with code. There's no numbers on there, you gotta show that.
What do you mean, I don't understand
The
that.
aisle with the driving aisle. I
Yeah.
need to know that it meets the code.
Okay, which is 12 feet.
Put
we
the
do have that.
measurement on.
Okay.
There's a variance granted on the site for parking. By dividing the space into 4 new spaces, there is no need for the additional parking variance. Parking complies with code. It's actually better than it was before. There's more space devoted to kitchen and other things, and less space devoted to people going there.
Thanks, Mike. Rich?
So the applicant.
Sorry. They're going, are you on for tomorrow night for the zoning variance?
No.
Oh, okay, they need a variance for side yard also for the addition. They had one already for the existing building, but this is an addition that's gonna be in the same line, but it will also need a variance, sorry about that.
So
For us? I thought we got the variance for that.
The side yard?
Yeah.
Is it on the plat?
Yeah, I remember when we applied for, we indicated that the side yard and the front yard, they were both.
Did you put it on the plat, though?
No, the discussion was we alternate pre-existing non-conforming on the side, so therefore, although there was a variance for it, we need a new variance. I think we got that.
They did get that
Yes,
at the
we
last
did
meeting,
get
sorry.
that.
But is it on the plat, though, the variance?
On this plat, I think I did put it in, but if not, we'll
Check
add
it
it
and
on.
make sure that you put it on the
I know
zoning.
we got the variance for it.
Hey, Mike, before we move on to Rich, I did have a star next to this here. Provide aisle width at the look. A bollard and fence may be needed to keep vehicles from hitting the building. I've been out to that property several times. I understand what you're saying here, but what I don't know what to do with this, where it says may be needed. How do we firm that up? Because I think it's a good idea, actually.
I spoke to Willie.
We did put them on. They are on the plat. We added 2 pillars, concrete pillars. I mean, one of them is gonna even have a sign on it that says, "Do not enter," because that's one way.
Okay. And
We're
Mike,
gonna
does
use
that
it for
satisfy
double
you?
usage.
Yeah, that does, and we also discussed putting a railing up along that side so that people wouldn't dart into the parking lot while people were driving out into the
Great.
aisle that we were
Okay.
talking about before.
Yeah.
So that's another thing we're gonna discuss. I think he
We
put it.
looked at that, the parking lot is much higher. There's like a little concrete wall there. If we are talking about the same spot. We'll take care of it, if it need to be taken care of. That's not a big deal. It's a minor item.
We discussed it the other day, and I thought you said you were gonna put it right on the plat. Just put it on.
Most likely I did it, but I thought you were talking about going out to the right-hand side on the condominium next door.
I'm talking about if you're standing on Route 6, the left side, when you leave, if somebody walks out the door and a kid darts towards the lane of traffic, we want a fence there to keep them from going when they're so close to the building.
That we didn't put, we'll definitely.
We're gonna
we can
put that
add it
on there, though.
For safety purpose, no
Thank you, Greg.
problem.
All right, thanks, Mike. Thanks, Willie. Rich?
So the applicant has noted the referrals and has submitted plans to the fire department, New York City DEP, and Putnam County Planning. They will need a permit for New York City DEP for the wastewater flows. The vehicle movement plans, all turning radii for the site should be graphically provided. This includes turning radii into the ingress and egress, turning in and out of the site. It is unclear if the type of vehicle, so they submitted turning radii for cars. They should provide it for any delivery trucks, garbage trucks, fire trucks, any of those type of vehicles that will be going in there. That goes back to Mike's comment, the width of the aisles that are there. There is a separate wastewater treatment, water and wastewater use report. Again, as I stated, approval is needed from the DEP. Signs and pavement markings should be provided at ingress and egress of site. They provided some pavement marking, but it's unclear if any signs are being added to the sites. Again, this goes to some of the comments that we've made earlier, safety of pedestrians moving throughout that site and how they get around. Any public improvements, performance bond and associated engineering fee must be established. The proposed floor plan provides for 10 ingress and egresses to the building. Site plan only shows 9. This should be clarified. The nomenclature on the doors do not match those on the site plan. This should be clarified. So one of them has an emergency exit. The site plan shows it as an emergency exit. The other one shows it as a mechanical room. Is it an emergency exit that goes through the mechanical room? What is it? It doesn't show that. So it just needs to have that clarified in there.
It is the access to the mechanical room. Maybe it was a typo that was called an egress out of it. It's not a door that will be active. It's going to be very rarely used. And the signs for the site circulation, traffic has been all added in there. Do not enter, the one way in, one way out, etc. We had provided those on the remainder.
Is there a sign schedule, or is it just written on the pavement? So
Just
you're not
written on the paper. If you want it in a sign schedule, we'll do it as a sign schedule. It's not a
we need a
problem.
sign schedule where you're putting handicap
Okay,
spots.
you know, the
where they're
whole,
gonna
the
be.
whole idea with this is it's a site that's existing. The alteration to the site is extremely minimum. It's 125 square foot added to a store to make it safer for egress and to make the building look better. There is no need for the square footage for the functionality of the store. And at the stage where we're gonna go in there and redo the entire site, the building is operational. If we don't do this, we don't have to be here. We're trying to make the building safer. We're trying to make the building better looking. It's 125 square foot that is not needed for this business in any shape or form for the functionality. The business will function on its own. But if we leave the door in the back where it is to that space, that means you have to walk around it. It becomes a lot more unsafe area than having it over the overhang, the sidewalk. It's one sidewalk that serves the whole thing. We, within the reason, we're willing to comply with all the requirements. I mean, most of the stuff that you said is not really, we don't see a problem with it. You know what I mean? But some of the things that is being asked for, and I'm trying to be as logical as possible, the building itself, the loading zone was approved in the front, and we indicated that on the plan where it is. So there's no delivery truck going to be going in there. There's no tractor trailers coming, what have you. The egress, let's say, you know, the turn radius for a large fire engine is not, we cannot comply with it. Does that mean we tear down the building? You know what I mean? So we have to be a little bit logical about it. We will try to comply with everything else that was asked for as much as we can. But this building was put back to the originally approved by the planning board completely. The parking, the layout, the aisle width, everything was to comply with the original, and Mike, you know, has a copy of it, and we kind of used that, and we did that.
Willie, let me intervene here. The questions that Mike and Rich just asked, you have the answers to. I think all we want to do is, you know, I like to say a lot of times we do these projects, and we have these folders, and they grow and they grow, and they're, you know, 95% complete. Getting that last 5%, cleaning up the final documents and taking and putting that darn file into the filing cabinet takes a little bit extra work. I think that's what we're talking about.
And then we will do that. I apologize about rambling on. We will take care of it.
We're supportive of this project. We helped this project. The site looks much better than what it did
Correct.
previously. So all we're asking you to do is cross some Ts, dot some Is, and we can move on.
We will do that, Greg. No
I'm
problem.
actually oh, I don't want to jump ahead. Pat, you got some comments?
So you all know the property, you pass it all the time. You can see where the addition is going. When you look at the front, it's that little gravel area that clearly wants a building to be put on it. So no issues with respect to this. I was incorrect. Mike clarified the variance issue. So they've cleared the variance issue. The issue, this was presented to us as an addition to the side of that restaurant that would accommodate pickups and drop-offs. So if that was an issue that you raised initially, and our concern was that there'd be drive-through or a pickup window. You indicated there wouldn't be.
No,
So
it's going to be, it fixed the glass window. There's no drive-through. There's no walk-up. It's just like I said, we're trying to push the door towards uniformly with the rest of the building to be all open onto one sidewalk, and that's the whole idea behind it. Again, we are using it for the customers to go in there to pick up. It's gonna be strictly a takeout business. As is, there's room for the customers in there.
So, again, Willie's selling past the close in this particular, so we got it. So there's no issue with respect to this. A condition of approval would be no drop-off windows associated or
Correct.
anything like.
Drive-through pickup,
No problem.
because that's the only concern.
That's
Yeah,
really the only.
absolutely, 100%, we agree with that.
Yep, so that's the only issue. And just a question, if this is accommodating pickups and drop-offs, would that occur after normal business hours? Is this a way to,
What do you mean, this is?
if the restaurant's closed, but I can go there at 2 in the morning and pick up something, is that something that's gonna happen there?
No, as far as we know, it's gonna be standard
gonna
operating
the same
hours. There's
operating
no
hours.
late operation, nothing is
So those
planned
are,
for
I think,
this.
just clarifications that you'd wanna oppose as conditions of approval.
It's absolutely no problem with that, no.
And Willie, you're definitely gonna have a garbage truck back there, so show us that you can fit a garbage truck through there. You're gonna have a garbage truck.
I will do that. But it's, the garbage company has to send probably a small truck, and that's what they do,
So Willie, all we're asking, Willie, show us the information. You're selling it to us, we got you.
You got it.
Understand, right?
We will do it.
Get it on the drawing like we're asking for.
I
We're not
will-
asking
I
for
will do
miracles here.
I
We're not
will do.
asking you to
You-
tear the building down, we're not asking you to do any of that.
You got it. We'll
Thank
take
you.
care of it. And I'll show it to you before we come again.
That would be wonderful.
All right, let me ask the board if they have any questions on this. This has been around for a little while. John?
No.
You good? Bob?
I'm good.
Vicky?
Nothing, I'm good.
Anthony?
Just to reiterate, the condition of approval, but that's not a takeout window.
Yeah, exactly. We got no problem with that.
Otherwise, I'm good.
Just, someone make a motion for public hearing?
I'll make a motion for public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
May I ask
So,
if possible
I'm
to do the
gonna
resolution?
interrupt you. So Pat, we might not meet at the end of August, big vacation time for a lot of people. It's a light agenda right now, I was talking to Rose today, so can you prepare a resolution in parallel to that so we can save them a month? Yes, sir. Willie, what were you gonna say?
Perfect.
Is that the question you were going to ask?
God rest his soul, Mr. Gary said to me, Willie, when I look at you, you shut your mouth. I said, you got it. Yeah, that's it. So Greg, all you have to do is just look at me from now on.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. And thank you for your time. We'll see you next month.
Next on the agenda is Greenpoint Tree Service, 6165 Old Route 6. Good evening, Paul.
Good evening, everyone.
Mike, you had some comments?
Yeah, same comments basically as last time again. Heavy commercial, you wrote as the use, just, can you define that? I gave you what it allows in that zone. You gave us elevations, I believe, with no floor plans. Is there a floor plan? Is there gonna be bathrooms? Are there gonna be offices? What will be there? And if you do that, then you could just have to offer some parking for people that are working there.
Thank you. Rich?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as Mike mentioned, my comments from the prior application and, to the planning board have not been addressed. The applicant is here waiting for a decision or at least an opinion of the board regarding 3 building configurations that they provided as part of this submittal, in which regarding the location, the orientation of the buildings. It appears that configuration 1 is the best solution of the 3 provided. However, it still doesn't address access for fire equipment around the building. So again, that's for the board to talk about and discern.
And Pat?
So if you remember, when this was, that's the initial plan that was presented to you. Our initial response, your board's response was this type of use, which is a contractor's yard, basically. They're typically sloppy and messy, and the kind of things we have concerns about. The way this is designed is all of that activity would be in front of the building. Garage doors, parking, potentially material storage, all of that activity would occur in front of the building. Your response to that was, can you do better? Can you make that less impactful from a visual perspective? So that's why Paul has presented you with 3 alternatives. I will say with presenting alternatives, you shouldn't be selecting the type of development this developer wants to develop. They should have a preferred alternative and be telling you, this is the one I'd like to build, but I could do it this way or that way. So you shouldn't be selecting his method of developing the site. I will say, so there are a couple of issues with respect to the configuration as it's presented now. Number one is the building's at an angle from the road. So ordinarily, you'd want a building to be oriented directly on the road. So an angled building is an unusual configuration to begin with. So the initial comment was, could you straighten the building out? And obviously, could you put stuff in the back instead of in the front? So Paul's done two things. The second alternative straightens out the building but segments it so that it sort of steps back, but it's oriented directly to the street. Still garage doors in the front, still parking in the front. The third alternative puts those garage doors in the back. And that's a plan that hasn't been fully developed, I think, because Paul doesn't really want to go in that direction. He's indicated that there might be a problem with gaining access to the far portion of the building if he goes around the back of the property. But again, that would be the ideal design, which would be putting the garage doors and the parking behind the building. So all I'll say with respect to that alternative is engineers are clever people and they can make things work if they really want to. So again, I think Paul can speak to his alternatives and his preference with respect to them.
Paul, before I turn it over to you and to the board, I agree with Pat that we should not be picking the alternative. We can work with you in developing one. And I know that area, we all know that area very well, very industrial. And you could say it's not the prettiest part of town. But I don't want to add to, we have a quote-unquote messy area or contractor area, or whatever you want to call it. I don't think we necessarily need to add to it. I think that's why last time we talked about, we said we're going to see piles of firewood outside. We're going to see piles of wood chips and gravel outside in the front of the building. Some way we got to put a stake in the ground, and we've done it in town, and start to turn the town a little bit, even old Route 6. So I just wanted you to hear that, my view of that before I give you the microphone. So go ahead, please.
Well, just to, Greenpoint were supposed to be here tonight. They could not make it. They had to cancel. But their intent is to rent the units out to contractors. And basically is you keep all your equipment, materials, whatever you have inside your unit. It's not, they have no intent to allow anybody to store anything out in front of their building units at all. I think there's another site in Carmel where, I'm not exactly sure, I think if it's Cook or somebody else who's got a building where they've done the same process. But basically it's, you rent this space, you're entitled to keep whatever it is you're gonna keep inside your unit, but nothing gets put out in front. And the reality is, you can't put anything out in front because of the turning radiuses of the trucks. When you look at a single unit body truck, it basically tells you, I need 42 feet to be able to get my truck to be able to turn and get into the garage unit. So this first plan that which we originally had was developed with that concept. So in other words, from the building to where the parking starts, down through here, that was 42 feet. And that gives me the ability to drive into the site and either pull into a unit or actually drive in and back into a unit. Now, backing in is the ideal way to park your truck in the building because the next day when you want to pull out, you're driving out face forward as opposed to having to back out and, you know, being blind.
Yeah.
So that, the truck turning movement set the 42 feet. The front property line, you know, the front property setback for where the building could be is, we've got to be on the east side of that. So that allowed me to put my parking in here and develop my stormwater down gradient of that, so that those sort of things worked for me from that concept. So I'll go through the other two layouts that we did. remembering that the 42 feet, in all honesty, is the number you need for a single-unit body truck to be able to make the turn.
And Paul, just to interrupt again, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but that's the point. So I get it. We promised to put everything inside the building. We know contractor yards, stuff's never inside the building. That's the problem. So if that's the way this would operate, we have a condition that doesn't operate properly. There isn't adequate space to make all that happen. So unless Mike's posted there every day saying, get that stuff inside the building, the nature of contractor yards, Paul, is that it gets messy and sloppy. So that's the concern.
Well, I
get
just
it.
made a note that says conditional, make it conditional, but then who's
Correct.
gonna police it?
Yeah, and again, the contractors, it's a daily thing. They have an extra load of stuff and they didn't need to
An
temporarily.
extra truck? An extra
Plows,
truck?
Yeah.
buckets, all the stuff that's
It's
gonna,
Exactly right.
would
So
you
it's-
be willing to put a note on the plat that said nothing will be stored outside in front ever?
No issue with that at all.
So that's, that's the mechanism to ensure compliance. But reality,
No, I went through that with them up front to make sure that if this is your business model, and this is how you're gonna run it, you're gonna be held to it. So if that notation needs to be put on the plat, then that is
Yeah,
fine.
we don't want to see piles of salt and sand outside for snow removal or, firewood for sale or.
It's simply, Mr. Chairman, that our experience, in spite of everyone's good intentions, occasionally stuff's piled on the site. It's just the nature of the beast. So
Now,
just be aware of that.
I will say that Greenpoint, they have their current yard off of Stoney Avenue. That's gonna remain, so that's where they have their wood. It's not that they're looking to bring their wood here.
Paul, with all due respect, showing us the options are nice. I don't know about the board's view, but I'd personally rather you come back here with the option you choose, your team chooses.
Okay.
I
Well,
don't know what, Rich, you got, Mike, Pat, you got a view of that?
We shouldn't be choosing.
Well,
Board? Anthony?
No, I agree. I think you should propose what you want. I do, just looking though, the biggest thing that we need to consider is truck flow
yeah,
and what
Did you
works
say
best.
truck flow?
Yeah, in and out, pulling, turning radiuses and whatnot, and it changes between the first, the second, and the third. So I think that aesthetics are as important, but also it's gotta be functional.
correct.
So come back to us, as we've said.
Well, what the intent tonight was to show you, this is our preference and why the other two options you asked me
What
to
number is
look
that? I'm
at.
sorry, which
That's
one's that?
just, site plan one.
This would be site plan one. And I wanted to explain to you why the other two options really don't work. And this is why this is the one we would go with. So in a nutshell, knowing that I needed 42 feet, where we take the buildings, make them parallel to the road, and step them back to run along the face of the rock cut, still allows me to have my stormwater. I can still get my parking in front. The only problem is in terms of, because I only have 26 feet to work with at the tight spots, I can't get a truck in and out without going through what could be parked cars. So, assuming that, the two were there at the same time, it doesn't work. So that's why I wanted to show you this. And then the third option, was if we tried to bring everything to the back, which is a great idea if you actually had the property to work with, which I don't have. Remember, I have the 40-foot setback from the front yard to where my building can be. Now, this drawing does not show any parking at all, because in essence, I can't put any parking spaces on the property. I've got 40 feet in between the property line and the building. I have a 10-foot offset that I have to maintain from the front property line. I've got a 24-foot wide aisle. I need 18 to 20 feet for a parking space. The mathematics just didn't work. So forgetting even that, if I come around to the back, I can hold my 42 feet, which I need, which I explained in the first drawing. I can only basically get 4 units to work. Anything past that, I can't get in and out of what I have to work with.
Paul, can you
Because
tell
I can't take these and slide them down.
Can you tell us what the depth of the building, what's fixing the depth of the building?
71 feet.
Why is it 71 feet? Why can't it be 63 feet or whatever?
I can't answer that because the Green Tree would have to answer that
Okay.
question as to what
So
their,
that's the other constraint.
what their
So
mathematics
The wall in the
were.
back, the front property line, that's their constraint. And that building is a certain width for some reason. If the building were skinnier and fatter, would that solve the problem? I don't know.
Yeah,
So it would be nice to know why 72 feet.
so changing the building's dimensions would solve
It could.
possibly.
It may. I just don't know why 72 feet.
Good question.
Well, do you have a rendering on any elevations?
No, not,
Because what
it
I was
was,
getting, I think.
it was
the
too
sense is
premature.
We'd love to see things
Okay.
in the back. Now logistically, you may not be able to make that work, which means if you're gonna put the doors in the front, maybe not look at this as this big rectangular building, but maybe give it a little character. With the right doors in the front, with the right, almost like almost a big barn. If we have to see doors in the front. So, I mean, that's for a later meeting, but I'm just,
Yes.
you wanted some feedback, I'm giving you some feedback.
No, which is fine. I just didn't want to go down that trail if all of a sudden we're, in essence, at a stopping point where things aren't working for the buyers.
Question. So for me, I mean, I understand the constraints that you're dealing with. I'm sympathetic to them. But the aesthetics, there are a couple ways to approach it. One is the way Anthony just suggested. Another way is screening from the street. Right now, when you drive by, there is not what I would call beautiful plantings. There's scrub, but the scrub grows up. I don't know what it looks like in the winter, but basically it's high enough at this point that you can't see a lot unless you're craning your neck and trying to look into the property. So the question is, what type of screening would you be planning here?
We would definitely screen it for year-round use. So it would probably be evergreens, coniferous-type trees, as opposed to a hardwood tree.
And then second question, on the neighboring property to the left, that's going to continue in operation as it is now? That's, they've got a lot of, so where you're,
This side?
yeah, there are piles of stuff that,
Ultimately, that all gets moved out. That's all part of Lee Schultz's mining
so what's
permit.
happening to that property on the left side then?
Excuse me?
Right now, maybe I'm misunderstanding something, but when you, as the property exists now, there's a driveway in.
Yes.
I'm under the impression this,
We're to the right of that.
all to the right of it.
Yes.
What's the future for the property at the left?
That's a separate tax lot that's going to be purchased and developed
And
by
developed
somebody else.
separately? Okay.
Yeah, this was subdivided a number of years ago.
Yes.
Okay, I get that. I'm just asking whether the fill operations, whatever you call it, the,
Mining,
I'm sorry?
mining.
The mining operations, whether that's going to continue, and you're saying no, the planning?
No, I think that's pretty much winding down.
Okay.
It's regrading.
So
Yes, mining.
around the
Regrading.
perimeter of the building, you're anticipating paving that whole area?
No, this would not be paved. It would be millings. We would leave it in as a porous
Got it.
surface.
Okay.
Then you'll be going to zoning board for that.
Yeah.
Any required parking spot for 3 or more requires permanently improvement. To the right of that, 2 over, there is the Durkin property. They're going to be doing some work over there. So when you're doing your architecturals, you may want to consider, making sure that they're harmonious with each other.
Well, Mike, based on what we just talked about, it sounds like there's going to be some activity there
Yes, there is.
and several different owners. So this actually confirms the way we're looking at this project in my mind is we got to put a stake in the ground somewhere, do our due diligence, and then when the next person comes forward, and the next person, before you know it, we'll turn the area. Okay. Any questions from Vicky, John?
Yeah, I have one quick question about the parking. So you need, these are 42 feet from the building to the parking, the end of the parking, wherever the cars are?
Yes.
If all of those spots are full, there's still enough room?
Yes, because you have 42 feet from behind the parking space.
Any time limit on how long people can park there, or are they just people that, who's going to be parking there?
Whoever, the number of parking spaces is based on what the code tells me I have to have. Not that there's going to be that many cars there.
Yeah,
Because normally a contractor's going to drive in, park his car, take his truck. He may put his car in his unit.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, you've got no idea what
It
people are
seems like a
going
lot
to
of
do.
parking spaces.
Yeah.
But
Did we talk about restrooms for this?
There'd probably be a small office, so there'd be a restroom, I would say, bathroom in each unit.
So look, there's a lot of comments here. John, did you have, I'm sorry, did you? There's a lot of comments here. I think you need to work with Mike and Rich a little bit, and
Yes.
Pat, and, there's a couple pages, you could weed through these pretty quick. I mean,
Yes.
nothing's a showstopper, by the way.
No, I did read through it. I just wanted to respond to the initial feedback I got from the board, asking about, can you put the garage doors on the back? Can you get it parallel to the street? And I thought it was
Yeah.
worth the exercise to show you why it does or doesn't work.
I think you gave us a little education on that. Good, thank you.
You're welcome. That was the intent
Yeah,
for
And
tonight.
it worked. Okay,
All right?
Paul, thanks.
Thank you.
Just to address one of the board's questions, the way, there's Durkin, and then there's the dog walking park, which is across from the Putney Humane Society, and I believe then there's this project here. And then I thought that, I can't remember who it was, but somebody was coming for the project next to this one. And I remember talking to them saying, all this is going on down there, we talked to them, not just me. So I don't remember who it was, but the three of us talked to whoever that next applicant was, saying, well, these guys are putting in a building, we want to make it harmonious. So we're all on the same page with that. And we also now, as Mike mentioned, Durkin is looking to do work up there, so, we recommend you talk to them and see what they're looking to do, Paul, because
Okay, I'll touch base.
they will
with
be in
them.
front of this board soon enough, I believe, so.
And I think they said they were going to try to stick with the farm look. So,
Okay, great.
All right, thank you.
Opportunity. Next on the agenda is Diamond Point Development, 4 Walden Place. Good evening.
Good evening.
Mike, you had some comments?
it's basically my same comments as last time. The applicant's taken down the barn, the two single-family houses, museum, candy shop, all other accessory structures, and replaced them with the retail building along Route 6 and these two storage buildings that we're talking about. We went over the sign ordinance with them. They can put a sign on both Baldwin Place Road and 6, and I also spoke to them about the required parking, which they can show us. They got tons of land. They just have to show us if this should not happen to work, they can still use it as a retail or another use that would be permitted over there.
Thank you. Rich?
So since they were here last, it includes the addition of 2 self-storage buildings and a 1,100 square foot office building. It has been reduced. The central storage building has reduced from 300 feet to 260 feet, and the Phase 2 building closest to Baldwin Place Road has been removed. In general, most of the comments have been acknowledged by the applicant. All will be provided in the future with regards to stormwater, performance bonds, turning radii, lighting plans, all those will be there. So I think the board, they're here to just talk to you guys, the board, about this project, so.
Thank you. And I think, Pat, you also had some comments.
I did, Mr. Chairman. So from day one, we've expressed the importance of this site at the gateway to the town, how it's critically important for us, and the nature of this use as a self-storage facility initially represented a concern. The applicant's been doing a good job in demonstrating that the design of this facility would be sensitive to our concerns. So, important site. The thing that's most disconcerting to me is this is the applicant's third appearance before you, and at each time, the project has been reduced in size. So that worries me that the applicant's miscalculating the market or has under-evaluated or misevaluated the development potential of the property itself. So the fact that the project's continually shrinking represents a concern to me. So where is the market? Is this the right size project? It's a very big site. We're not going to get a chance to redevelop this site ever again. This is the shot. So if they're getting it wrong, we have to really understand that. So no offense in that sense, but we got to get it right. We did send this over to our architectural consultant, and they've been working with them, I think, constructively to deal with that. One thing I want to point out, they submitted some additional documentation, one of which is you asked what's the tax rateable for this. And I would just point out that they've worked with the, I think the town and the appraiser, the assessor, and I think they've given us a tax rateable of this project at $268,000 annually.
Pat, I just want to be clear, that's for the Phase 1
Yep, for
part of the
Phase
project,
1.
not inclusive of the Phase 2, the big building on the hill.
So again, I just want you to bear that in mind in terms of the context of what we're talking about here in terms of the development of the potential. And again, no offense to the developer, that's not a huge windfall for us in terms of a tax rateable. It's a modest tax rateable for the type of use that we're talking about here. So getting the size of the project right, if the initial presentation is because it's a great tax rateable for you, no service costs, but the project constantly shrinks and the tax rateable associated with that, which was why the applicant was saying it's a good project, is consequently shrinking as well, we're losing the benefit of the project. So there's some concern about what's happening with respect to the project right now. So those are basically my comments. And again, they're making progress with our architectural guy, which is very important on this site.
So I think there's a lot of questions. Why don't you try to respond to that before I ask them what to speak? Sure.
Do you want me to respond to?
You need to use the microphone.
That
Please
seems to be
state
the
your
biggest
name.
questions.
Please state your name.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jason Summer. I live at 4310 Granby Way in Marietta, Georgia. I'm from upstate New York originally. I've been in front of the planning board. This is my second time in front of the board, and I've also met with staff and previously to that.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you there.
Okay, no, I'll go louder.
Thank you.
I'll go louder. To answer about the shrinking, and that is a good question. The reason we're shrinking the parcel is actually as consideration from the last comments of the planning board. And I think it was Mike, and I think it was, or the staff, I should say, talked about a sunset, not having a Phase 2 that goes on forever. The Phase 2 needs to be developed in 5 years, or else the Phase 2 goes away. We believe that this Phase 2, can you hear me?
Yeah.
This Phase 2 would be reasonable within 5 years to redevelop. So this is going to be the beginning, and this is going to be Phase 1. And we think we absolutely can support it. And then Phase 2 within 5 years, or else the plan goes away. As I think that's what was requested by staff and by the planning board. To talk about the metrics, and I mentioned this briefly last time, the national average of self-storage per capita is 8. So 8 square feet per capita in a 5-mile radius in the trading area. The radius will change, but we look at this as a 5-mile radius. In Carmel, with the 5-mile radius here, it's 2.22 to be specific. So when we add these rentable square feet, it'll be up to about 3.5, okay, which is still well below what we think is feasible and what we think is a great project. So we are not shrinking from this anywhere, and quite honestly, in 10 years, maybe this other piece would be warranted. But with a sunset on that Phase 2, we don't think it makes any sense. Did I articulate that well, Pat? I mean, did you understand it?
So you have a handle on the absorption rate of units per, so if we're only getting you up to 3.3 or whatever it is, and we could be 8?
It could be 8.
Yeah, so why are we shrinking the project if there's that much? So is the issue absorption?
It's absorption. We estimate about 30 months to get fully leased for this amount of square feet. You're talking roughly 80,000 rentable square feet based on that efficiency of the building. So we're talking about 30 months. So it's going to take us a year to build it. It's going to take us 30 months. There's 4 years right there.
So that's useful information. Can you just provide the documentation to us for that?
Sure, I certainly can, and I actually have it here, the information here, but in my bag of tricks, if you want me to leave it with you,
You can
so,
just submit it when you get it.
certainly.
Can I just?
Please.
Okay. Further to the issue of the shrinking project and the economics and the metrics, this is just by happenstance. I was reading the Wall Street Journal today. You're nodding. Article in there, self-storage rents drop by records as boom from the pandemic cools. And I just want to read some statistics out loud. With the headwinds of a slowing economy and a muted housing market, demand levels will continue to feel pressure. Rents for new customers at U.S. self-storage facilities declined in the first quarter of 2023 to $15.45 a square foot, a 10% drop from the first quarter of 2022. That drop, following a comparable reduction in the fourth quarter of 2022, marked the biggest decline on record since they were tracking this in 2013. New leasing activity this summer, typically the peak storage demand season, has fallen to its lowest level in 3 years. New customer rents are 8% lower today than in the second quarter of 2022. So I guess I heard the statistics you quoted. I would really like to see a written economic analysis, market analysis that is up to date in terms of these statistics and shows us that there is a potential for success for this project. Right now, I'm scratching my head and saying, is that really possible?
Just to respond a little bit, if you had looked in the Wall Street Journal 2 days ago, Blackstone just sold their portfolio of self-storage, 127 units, for $3 billion to Public Storage. They bought it for $1.2 billion 2 years ago. So it is a very, very, very lucrative. You had mentioned a $15 rate is the average, and you'd said a drop to this. The rate in Carmel, within the 5-mile radius, is the achieved rate at the Public Storage you have up the street, in the CubeSmart, as well as the Extra Space within the 5-mile radius. They're all over $30 per square foot. So this market is actually double what the national average is.
It's interesting to hear, but I actually want to see something in writing. I want to see an analysis in writing.
Sure. I can certainly show you our pro forma. I don't think I can put in writing what the other facilities' rates are, but maybe I can. I can ask them if I'm confidential. I'm not supposed to be talking about it now, but it is over $30 each of the properties. Sure. We can show you the absorption rate too and how we're looking at that. And just so you know, this is our 14th self-storage facility we've done. 8 of them are in the Northeast. I can take a look at some of the absorption I can show you what our property in Albany and Capital District's doing, or our property in Portland, Maine is doing, or our property we've got.
This conversation would be totally different if this was being located where our previous applicant was. As Pat mentioned and Bob referred to, it's a gateway to our community, right?
Sure.
We're going from Yorktown to Mahopac, and it's concerning for us.
No, I understand. I'd be happy to give you the references of our lenders. We're working, the financing for this is going to be by one of the largest commercial real estate family offices in the country. It's certainly financially backed. I could send you a note from our lender who's doing the debt.
So I'm sure you can take some stuff out of your pitch book and give it
Oh,
to
we
us.
got a lot. We got a lot. Yeah, I'll do that. I'm happy to do that. But the financial viability, I'm not worried about it at all. The more tricky things is what Adam is talking about, is some of the stormwater. It's a tough site, and that also comes into the cost. And when you had asked about shrinking it, we're cognizant of cost on the site work. And the more square feet we put on here, the more obviously site costs there are. So that's the other thing that's into play.
Good answer. That's a totally defensible position to take.
Switching gears, architecture. I guess your memo from July 12th says that the renderings in there, the elevations that are in there, reflect the comments that came from our architect? Is that?
That's correct.
Okay. So I'm going to say it the way I feel it, which is I'm really not happy with the architectural elevations. It looks like a factory. It's just straight lines. I don't see any creativity. I don't see anything. We talked about down in the previous applicant site, putting in a barn-like structure. I don't see anything along those lines there. It's just devoid of any nice feelings about in the neighborhood for this gateway area and very close to a residential area as well.
Okay, I understand. We tried to dress up the front of it on Route 6, but you don't like that building on Route 6?
The entry building, the little building is fine. I'm talking about the main building.
Right, the building behind it.
Yeah. It it doesn't look nice. It looks,
Yeah,
it's
kind of linear.
it's a monstrosity. Sorry.
It's a monstrosity, okay. Well, what we've tried to do is, we've took every one of John's comments, the architect's comments, with our architect. It is a self-storage building. It is not a, it is not a barn, and it is not a, but we tried to make it nice. How about screening? Would that be a better way to do it? Or?
I went online, and that's always a dangerous thing, but I found some website for design trends in 2022 for self-storage buildings. And there are like 50 different pictures, and, it covers stuff from dismal stuff to really heavily designed, well-designed stuff in suburban areas. For example, Washington State had some beautiful stuff. But it shows that there can be, they put in, maybe they're false windows, but they're windows. There's glazing, there's overhangs, there are peaked roofs. A lot of this stuff that's just missing here.
If I could jump in.
Just because it's a storage facility, maybe pretty cool, pretty interesting, we don't make it look like a storage facility.
What we tried to do, whether we did this right or not, is the area that's visible from the street, okay? And that's really the building on Route 6. We wanted to put some money into that, so we tried to make that architecturally.
Well done, yeah.
And it's well done. It's
Adam, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I interrupted you.
I was just going to cut in and just explain a little bit about how the process has gone to this point. So Jason and DPD have been diligent about seeking input from John, and they've been actively incorporating his feedback into the design. So most of the feedback that we've gotten has been related to design details on the facade of the building. So I think it's had a lot to do with cornice lines, trim lines, the extension of certain design features that were more limited in earlier versions. Like, for example, the stone on the front of the building. They've increased the amount of stone to kind of accentuate the main entrance of the building. Initially, it was just the bottom couple feet of the building. It's now been extended to create an accent point on the building. So they've continued to, like I said, seek the input of John and get any kind of feedback that we can. I think they've responded to every one of his comments. So, we're hoping we could leave tonight having already responded to most of what we've gotten from John with more clear direction from the board.
You've revised the plan based on.
Yeah, so what you're seeing
Has John
tonight,
seen the revised plan?
it's been submitted to John. We haven't gotten
We need to hear
responses
his
back.
reaction to your
Sure.
reaction to him.
So you were just mentioning details on the building. You were talking about the big building in the back.
Yes.
So my only thought, Madam, and again, for what it's worth, is the detail of a building that you really won't see that clearly from the road, and there'll be screening. I don't care if it's stone or not, because it's so far away. But the form of the building, the fact that there's not peak roofs and things like that, maybe that's the element that's visible from a distance. But the quality of the material, you're not gonna get that going by at 30 miles an hour.
So some kind of cornice line, some kind of,
Parapets.
Gables or
parapets,
something.
Something like that.
What do you call it, overhangs? So
Okay.
it's not just a
I'm saying-
straight facade.
Gotcha, okay.
So if we look at this elevation, if you could just change the roof line, you know, maybe add some cupolas to it. Put a little detail into the roof, a little character to it.
And we've done that before. That's certainly a reasonable request
So
you
if you
guys,
look
you
at
guys
the
are making.
rendition, I mean, it's an appealing view. So, I mean, it really would showcase, as you said,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman. That's one of the first things people will see coming into town.
Couple
We
of,
don't need- I don't think we need it to say, jump out at you and say, oh yeah, that's a nice storage facility. Maybe they drive by and say, wow, what a beautiful building.
I think they're going to get a good view of, from what I can tell, I mean, we open the trees up so you can see it, but that view is an overstated view of actually what it's going to look like from the road, I think.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
so I don't think you're going to
I think
see
the building
much
should stand on its own, whether it's
visible or
by
not.
itself or not. And I think what Pat and Bob and Anthony just said make a lot of sense. I understand that's gonna be hidden by trees, but let's design and build it as if it's your house. Oh, I'm exaggerating, but that, a building that's the one on Route 6 says, it catches their eye. I think that's what we wanna do, right? So
And maybe the detail that you put into the retail building, right? I think kind of
Yeah,
get some of that into.
you have a different
yeah.
scale.
Sure.
And so
I mean,
it's
in
not
the
going
end,
to be
it's a storage
articulated
building,
to
I
the degree that
understand
the small,
And you
right.
did a wonderful job in that building.
I think the roof line is something we can work on. I think that's a very reasonable sort of request. We'll go back to the,
And not a flat front. You need something.
to extend from it, to break it
Jason, I
up.
think that'd be worthwhile. Any
We're
comments?
certainly, we followed every comment. We went down the list of John's comments and followed every one. But I don't think this is bad direction. I think this is good direction from the board, so we'll certainly give it its due.
Look, we want this done right, obviously.
Yeah, sure. So do we, so.
Any other comments from the board?
No, I think that covers it.
Good.
Just before we go, just want to make sure we've hit all the points. So with regard to the discussion at the last meeting relative to the Phase 2, I just want to, the suggestion, our suggestion of writing it, okay.
So, to be determined, so that's, you've offered a 5-year provision for that?
5 years,
Get our arms around that, determine if that's sufficient, if it's too long, if it's too short, so that's something you need to chew on. They've offered a 5-year phase.
5 years
Do it in
seems,
5 years, if they lose phase 2.
That's the second building in the
seems like enough time to give the applicant the flexibility that they need, but also doesn't hold the town on the hook with an open-ended Phase 2 for an extended amount of time.
What I would say is, that goes to your data on absorption. So we can make up a number or whatever, but it should be based on something. So if it's based on an absorption rate of typical self-storage, so that's data that we can use. That's something we can actually firmly base a decision on.
certainly, we can give you extensive, data is something we have, so we can give you extensive data.
and we're going to hold your bond the whole time, so you're going to want to get it moving as well. It
Good point.
doesn't benefit you to drag your feet.
Absolutely.
So I just did a quick internet search, Jackson, Maine architecture. They did work in Duval, Washington, called Sherlock Self-Storage. It was designed with a massing model meant to emulate a nearby historic barn. The 89,407 square foot facility, which I know you guys are a little bigger than that, includes 4 levels and 592 units. You know, you can just, that's one. They have a lot of modern ones, they have a lot of the typical ones we see, but this is one that's out there, and it's emulating a barn. Part of what the board has been saying is you have a barn there right now that is not very pretty, but it was at one point in time, right? At one point in time, that was what we saw. And you know, we would like to see that again. It could be self-storage. I think that's what the board
Yeah.
is trying to say to you. So, don't care about the stone, but make it look like a barn.
Okay, we'll
Understood.
give it a go. You could look at our website as well, as another thing to pull up, and you can see some of that we've done. We try to spend the money on the street-facing facades. That's always been our, but you'll see in there's some things that look like a Williamsburg home or a Williamsburg building. We try to match the area, but again, we try to spend the money on the street-facing, so.
And you've got one site that's, one property in this entire town that's known as a farm. So that should be an historical cue for you. So whether it's a gable roof or a silo as an accent feature, those are
Sure. Would you like us to reach back out to John for that feedback, or just kind of go in our own direction?
Why don't you, again, just like you heard the prior application, you pick which plan you want. It should be your vision for your property. Once you have a vision, we'll work with the vision to make sure it's sensitive enough to our concerns. But it should be our idea, or our guys' idea. It should be your idea.
Sure.
You know this better than us, so that's why it should be your idea.
Okay, but not reach out to John for feedback? We're kind of done with that part of the process?
You have a relationship with him, so he's an asset for you. So come talk to him about that. Don't say, hey, John designed this.
No. I get you.
Give John our feedback, give John the references Bob made and.
We could probably
Rich
schedule a call
made
with them,
and Anthony made about the roof.
go through it.
Okay, certainly.
We got an opportunity here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job on that.
Thank you.
Last but not least, Yankee Land Development, Bayberry Hill Road and Owen Drive, final subdivision.
Good evening, I'm Ed Delaney from Goodwill Associates.
Use the
Please use the
microphone.
microphone.
You
This
just,
is the owner,
thank you,
Angela Levine.
thank you. And Mike, you had some comments, I believe.
I did. The applicant now proposes to divide the original 109.905 acres into two lots. The two lots will then be re-subdivided into the lots that make up the current Yankee Land Development. We don't allow phasing. It's a big investment to do both at the same time, so he's trying to make it into two separate projects. So it's going to be eventually A and B or 1 and 2. The reason for the process is to allow for flexibility in the development. If they make two lots now and then only subdivide one of the lots now and one later, they can do the development in two parts, since the planning board does, and they frown on phasing. I have no objection to the two-lot subdivision as it's shown on the plat.
Thank you. And Rich?
So I mimic what Mike said, just so the board knows, preliminary plan was provided in February of 2012, 14-lot subdivision on approximately 110 acres. They're requesting a new subdivision to create a 2-lot subdivision. There's a single home on each parcel shown because they have to do that. They plan on further subdividing these lots to match what they already have preliminary approval for. We have no objection to the subdivision being presented. Again, in the future, it's unclear, a whole bunch of other comments with subdivisions and whatnot that still need to be addressed as this moves forward.
And echoing Mike and Rich, that preliminary approval, it got past preliminary approval. They were poised for final approval. And a lot of work went into that 14-lot plan. It was a very complicated project. We spent there's a lot of our skin in that game. So the notion of him reorienting his business model to do that in basically two different phases, no problem with that, no issue with that. And eventually we'll see 14 lots on that 100-acre parcel, one way or another, in a manner that we don't have non-completed roads that are built or non-completed developments because you couldn't fund it or whatever it is. It's all about our reluctance to phase. This is his way around that. I will add that the notion of phasing is something that may emerge again through our comprehensive planning process, Mr. Chairman, as you're aware of. So that may be something that an applicant will be able to take advantage of in the future if Ed doesn't break the thing over there. But this is his only way around this. So no issues, no objections.
Use the other one.
Yeah.
Use
there's
the
one
other
over
easel.
Why don't I just hold it?
It's fine.
No, use the other one. So, at the end of the day, we're looking to subdivide approximately 50 some odd acres each
You're splitting 100
subdivision.
in half.
And 7 houses would be built on each subdivision, correct?
That's correct.
Can you give us,
It's a fairly unique piece of property. Like I said, I've been in front of the board for 12, 13 years on this property. Angela's been in front of it for almost 20. The original 14 lots were divided into 7 lots with its own road, 7 lots with its own road, its own drainage, its own septics, its own wells. So this property line that's dividing was actually a part of the approved 14-lot subdivision. So this is one of the first subdivisions I've seen where you could take the east parcel with its own road and 7 lots, or market the west side with its own road and 7 lots, or not, or sell each lot. But no matter what, we have to come back someday with a 7-lot or a 7-lot or a 14-lot along the same dividing lines that would previously been approved by the planning board many times. This is all approved by the Putnam County Health Department many years ago. We did a lot of studies. There's a lot of money, engineering thrown into this. But right now, we're just hoping to go quickly to preliminary approvals for this 2-lot subdivision and take it from there.
This is a minor subdivision, so they could go right to final.
Right to final. So
They don't
that's-
even need
They
preliminary.
don't. So the next step would be to schedule a public hearing on it if you choose to move that, and that's how you would advance it.
I like to see this. Well, you need the microphone, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, use the microphone.
Do we need to do that if we're gonna go to a 7-lot subdivision on one, or not, or what?
Yes, you
Yes.
need to create lots A and B or 1 and 2. I don't care
And
how
with
you
final
call it.
approval?
Final approval, file the map, get the 2 lots separate. Then this one can be Mike Carnazza Estates, this one could be Joe Charbonneau's, who cares what you call it? And you could do them separately, together, whatever you choose, you sell them however you like, it doesn't matter, it's just, this is your phasing in a simpler
Thank you.
form.
We have set up with Rose for notification, for mailings, for the public hearing, for the 2-lot subdivision. The check's in the envelope right there for the public, for the mailings. So we're all set up to go with the 2-lot public hearing.
This has been around for a long time, huh?
I'm 2005 on it.
Really?
The previous engineer died. So,
Any questions from the board?
Somebody died. Let's get this done quickly.
yeah, I'm running out of time here, all right?
I'm actually interested to hear from the public on this, to be honest with you, because who knows what comes up? Sometimes that's the best way of information. Yeah. You want to make a motion for a public hearing?
I make a motion for a public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a nice evening.
That guy wants to put those buildings on this property, I'll let him. And no one will see these buildings.
It's not permitted there.
Yeah, that's not possible, right?
It is not permitted there. It's permitted where he's trying.
Beautiful, they could really nice.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, I'm sorry, we don't have minutes.
No minutes.
So I'll make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.